Cincinnati Bengals season is most likely over. And here's why. Honestly, they just lost their fifth game of the season to Baltimore. They have lost both games to Baltimore. So that's going to hurt coming down the stretch, as that could be a battle for the division. Both teams have a tough schedule down the stretch. But the most importantly, Joe Burrow went down with an injury and could miss serious time. It wasn't contact as he really showed the pain. He threw the ball. Next thing you know, he's gripping his wrist. It could be anything. Like, he could hardly grip the ball. He couldn't throw the ball on the sideline afterwards. He was pulled from the game. This was early in the first quarter in this Bengals game. It didn't look good. Jake Browning didn't look awful, but he's not going to take them to the playoffs. He's not going to win these games down the stretch if Burrow can't go for 2 to 3 weeks. I mean, if he misses one more, it's going to already be tough enough in this amazing AFC this year. There's so many teams that seem like they have a legit shot at getting in. In Cincinnati, at 5 losses is already a bit in trouble here, because they're not even in a playoff spot. They weren't in a playoff spot coming into this game, as the Texans hold the tiebreaker over them. And now they're 5-5. Got it, one of the hardest schedules. They kept mentioning it throughout the game that they play every team over 500 from this point on. Every team they have on their schedule is over 500. And with Joe Burrow's injury, that's going to be extremely, extremely difficult. Now, if you're Pittsburgh, Cleveland, and Baltimore, you'll love this, because now you don't have to worry about Cincinnati. If you're the Chiefs, right now, it doesn't look like you have to worry about Cincinnati or the Bills. You only have to really worry about the Ravens, which is huge if you're Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City, because Lamar can't beat Mahomes. He hasn't done it yet. Can he do it this year? Maybe. Who knows? But if I'm Kansas City, I am loving Joe Burrow's injury. But what does this mean for Cincinnati? They might honestly, if Burrow can't play the rest of the year, they might lose out. They might honestly. I mean, Browning looked good enough, but I've never been a fan of Zach Taylor. I think Burrow has carried him. Burrow, T. Higgins, and Jamar Chase has carried him to this point. I just don't think they will do much without Burrow. They showed little fight against the Ravens. Once Burrow went down, everything changed. That game was competitive. Next thing you know, it was a blowout. They get a garbage time touchdown when the Ravens weren't trying that hard, because they were up by 21. I mean, there was nothing left in that game. It was just a garbage time touchdown. And yet, I still think they have a shot. But they have to hope. They have to hope Burrow can play. They got a 10-day break here since they played on Thursday night, so they won't play, obviously, this coming up Sunday. They won't play until next Sunday. So they got a bit of a break coming up, which is actually huge if you're a Cincinnati fan, because you know your season was already in the balance of this injury. But at least there's hope that maybe 10 days will be enough time for him to recover. But given the fact he couldn't grip the ball, couldn't throw the ball, he's going to be out for a little bit. There's something seriously wrong. I know coming into this game, he was wearing some type of sleeve. There wasn't much reporting about an injury to Joe Burrow's arm, but he was wearing a sleeve coming into the game, and it just doesn't look good. And on top of that, already having 5 losses, they were sitting here at 7-2 now after losing to Baltimore, or even 7-3, whatever the record would have been if they only had a couple losses here. I would see there's hope, I would say, at that point, because if Burrow only misses 2 games, then you only have 5 losses when he gets back. You probably have to win. Maybe you don't have to win out, because I do feel like that 7 seed, 10 wins is probably more than enough. But the problem is if now they have 5 losses. Burrow, let's just say Burrow doesn't play for 2 weeks. Browning loses both those games. Let's be honest here. They play Pittsburgh, who has just as great of a defense as Baltimore does, and then I think they play they play another decent team. I don't remember who it was. They popped it up on the thing, but those 2 games are going to be extremely difficult to win without Burrow. And when he comes back, they play tough game after tough game after tough game. And I just don't know if he can win out. They still have to play Kansas City. They got to play Cleveland again. They have to play the Dolphins. They might not be the Dolphins, but they play Jacksonville. So those are 3 top-tier teams right now in the NFL. Now, again, Cleveland also doesn't have their quarterback, but that doesn't really matter. Their quarterback wasn't the reason why Cleveland was winning. It's kind of like the same thing with Pittsburgh. So I think there's a very good chance that injury to Joe Burrow has ended their season, let alone having 5 losses to this point. I think this is kind of a borderline elimination game for both teams, because if Baltimore lost, they would have fell to 2-3 in division play, not looking good. They lost one game to both the Bengals and Cleveland. They've lost every game that they would have lost at that point in conference. It wouldn't have been good for Baltimore, but it wouldn't have been a death sentence. I think this game loss here is a death sentence for Cincinnati. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next one.